Hello, this is the Blast Report podcast on all things blasting. My name is Evan Tebow with New Wave Consulting, and I want to thank all the drill and blast teams along with those supporting them who are out there on the pattern. The production team at Blast Think and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the Blast Report podcast. This episode of the Blast Report podcast is brought to you by the Best in the West Conference. The Best in the West Conference regularly hosts over 300 participants bringing together mining companies, drill and blast suppliers, and government agencies to focus on safety, education, and innovation. It is with great pleasure to share this sponsorship opportunity as a congratulations to Shashi Kanth from the organizers of the Best in the West. In the last 20 years, they have distributed over $150,000 in scholarships to students from over 7 states. As a longtime member and professor, we want to acknowledge Sashi's hard work and dedication to the industry. We hope our listeners enjoyed this episode and plan to see you on April 22nd, 2026 at the 37th Annual Best in the West Conference. Since we kind of started talking about students, what was it that switched your career into being a professor? What was that trigger there?
Sure. So after Ensign Bickford, I ended up working in Arizona for a mine dispatch company called Modular Mining Systems for a short while. And then that company got bought by Komatsu, and they really didn't need their own sales force, so they ended up laying some of us off. And then I worked for a company called Special Devices in California, and that was a very, very interesting thing. Electronic debts were just still coming around. There were some that was already there, but there were newer and newer ones coming out. So I worked for a company called Special Devices that made airbag initiators. So in your truck, SUV, believe it or not, there is an initiator on your steering wheel for the airbag. There's an initiator on your passenger side airbag. There is initiators in your seat belt tensioners. Because when you have an accident, before the airbag comes on, the seat belt tenses and pulls you away from the steering. Then it comes on. So there's a micro gas generator on the seat belt side. That's a pyrotechnic event that happens. And so all of these things are happening, right? So there's about 4 or 5 devices. They're all connected on a 2-wire bus. And there's smart, energetic architecture in each of these devices, which is what electronic debts are. You want it to go off in a sequence with microsecond accuracy. And the whole project was, can we take that technology and make a product for the mining industry? So this is an aerospace defense company and an airbag company that never knew what mining was. And they had just forayed into it. So I was the only mining engineer on their staff, and we brought in some electronics folks, and we created a product. And now, instead of getting into the mining industry, obviously, once you have your electronics, you still need the base charge, you need the PET and lead azide, the shell, the cap, the whole 9 yards that go with it. So our advice, some of our experts' advice to the company was, let's not go there, because all we'll have is a detonator. We won't have boosters, we won't have powder, we won't have trucks, we don't have nothing. And that's a huge undertaking. Why don't we just make the chip and sell it to other companies that already have the detonator and become the Intel Inside concept? Like Intel makes a processor. They don't make a Dell computer. They don't make an IBM computer. They don't make a Lenovo. Yeah. They just make the chip. And you can put it in any machine and say Intel Inside. So we want it to be SDI Inside to each electronic debt company. So that was the model. Now, it worked to some extent, but then the company decided to go other routes. They got very busy in the defense sector, so they ended up selling that whole electronic ignition module EIM line to Austin. So Austin's E-Star today is based on that. It came from airbag technology. Yeah. So I was on that technology transfer from one to the other. And when that happened, the School of Mines, where I got my master's degree back in the 90s, the mining program was dwindling. The state didn't have a lot of support, and they had made a decision to shut the program down. However, thanks to our advisory board, who consisted of some really, really good people from the industry, they decided we can't let this happen. So they came to the Board of Regents and said, why are we shutting it down? That's the namesake of the school. You can't shut mining down. They said, well, our enrollment has dropped down to 5 or 6 students. And after they're done, we're done. And we're going to have to close the program down. And there was only 2 professors who were tenured, and things were about to go south. But then the advisory board said, no, we will try to raise some money. We will bring in a director to run the program, like a department chair, from the outside. And so they had a search, and I was encouraged to apply since I'm alumni. So a few of the people on the advisory board knew me, and they called and said, hey, you need to try this. And it was a complete change in career. So the original job was to run the program, start recruiting, and start fundraising. And it was quite challenging because they said, well, you'll have to raise your own funds for your own salary as well. It was a state-supported school, not state-funded, but supported to some extent. And our alumni came together really, really well. So we raised a lot of money and did that on a complete whim. Failure was not an option.
Yeah.
So started recruiting left and right. So fast forward about 7 to 8 years, we were at 150 students and one of the top 3 programs in the country by then. And we did really, really well. So I did everything from recruiting from high schools all the way to getting them graduated and finding them jobs. Our placement was at 100%. Every student who graduated got a job or 2 or more. And they're all in the industry today. At this show here, there's 3 of my students.
Wonderful.
I just bumped into Megan Burma, who was at Core. She was my student. And she is a success story for me. She's a poster child. She was a clerk at an airport at the FBO, and I'd gone to pay my fuel ticket as I just had to pay for the fuel, and she was reading a book, and I just struck up a conversation. Like, what are you reading? It was a business book. She's like, I think I'll get a degree in business. I said, business? What exactly do you want to do? And she was not very sure. I said, maybe you should consider being a mining engineer. I slipped my card and said, why don't you come and see me? Bring your mom, dad, or somebody to come see me. And she just shared that today, and she said, her mom said, you going to do what? And sure enough, she came. We got her a scholarship thanks to the industry support, and she became really good. She was my star student, straight A. She ended up working for Wharf Resources down here, and they sent her to Canada. She worked in Canada for a while. Now she's back. She's doing fantastic. She loves it. She's come up the ranks. Same thing with Megan Bickle. Rebecca Bickle, sorry, that's her sister. Rebecca is here. She works at Cordero at Peabody. Again, she came out of Nebraska, Papillon, Nebraska, and we just struck a conversation. And so I can tell you about 80 different stories like this, where I ran into random people that I recruited, and they've become very successful mining engineers. As part of the job was also teaching some classes. So I put on the role of a professor as well. Even though I don't have a PhD, I have a master's in mining, but not a PhD. It didn't matter because I had a lot of industry to share. But what I did really successfully was not what I brought to the table, but what I could leverage off the industry.
Of the industry. I see what you're saying.
Everybody helped.
The placement, the recruiting, the real life experience,
Absolutely.
the understanding.
Absolutely. We had guest speakers all the time from the industry. And being so close to the basin, we had people come in and teach class. We had people come in and take them on mine tours. I have taken literally a busload, a full 50-passenger bus, more than one occasion to different mines in the basin. Thanks to Cloud Peak at the time, thanks to Peabody, all of these people, they've helped, brought a busload of people. I still remember this tour bus. They let it drive into the pit, parked in one spot. All the kids got out, got in the dragline bucket. I have pictures. And that's how we did it. And we got the industry to help. And that was one reason why we were successful. All the way from getting them hooked, and then helping with classes, helping with scholarship funds, and then recruiting them for summer jobs. Every single student had a summer job or 2. And by the time they were in the senior year, had at least 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And
Full-time off.
Full-time. And they had already made up their mind where they're going to go. It was really, really great.
Yeah, it's crazy how recruitment it can be so difficult when companies cannot find enough students now. They're still searching for students, job placements.
probably been 100% for years.
Mhm.
So many of these universities, it's unbelievable. And if it hasn't been 100%, it's probably because the person didn't want.
True. And now you're competing with the IT industry, you're competing with the service industry and all that. So you really have to be on top of your game as a company to get best of the best come work for you. It's very critical. And even recruiting wise, I remember a lot of the college recruiting, they have a recruiting department, admissions group, who are usually not engineers, um, very nice people. They'll be some English major or something, and they'll stand around and hand out brochures, and they talk about how great their gym is, how great their cafeteria is, and how great the buildings are. And I had to change the script. I said, guys, that's 4 years of your life that's going to go in a flash. You'll have way too much fun. None of those things really matter end of the day. So you've got to show them what's at the end of the 4 years.
Yeah.
You're talking to an 18-year-old kid who really doesn't know what to expect, right?
They don't know what questions to ask.
Exactly. You don't know what you don't know, but you take that 18-year-old kid, put him on a bus or a van, take him to Gillette, to one of the mines, show him a blast or two, show him the big trucks and the shovels and say, you could be doing this. Show him the engineering. That'll open their eyes, saying, this is what I could be doing 4 years from now. That's more important than showing how nice your cafeteria is, how big your buildings are, and what kind of green space you have. All universities have them. They're all good, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to change the story. You've got to make them look for what is it that I expect after these 4 years. And yes, you're going to have a lot of trials and tribulations along the way. You're going to have a lot of fun.
Especially if it's engineering.
Absolutely. Oh, you'll have restless days. In fact, one of my students I ran into today reminded me that, hey, you're the only professor we had who had 6 a.m. classes. So I taught one course called MEM 466, it was management class. And that was at 6 a.m., 6 to 8 with one break.
Management class, 6 a.m.
6 a.m.
On purpose?
On purpose. So the logic was, guys, you guys are going to be mining engineers. For the rest of your life, you're going to get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? There are no mines next to your towns where you live. You have to get up and drive. First shift starts at 5:30. So for the rest of your life, you're going to get up early. So why don't you get a head start? And the beauty of that was I had 100% attendance. They loved it because a lot of them had summer jobs already. And they said, man, it clears up my rest of the day. I get up at 6, I'm at class, and it gives me a lot of time for the rest of the day. It worked great. In fact, a couple of my colleagues, professors, said, it'll never work. Nobody will show up. You'll have no attendance. I had 100%. The fact that I also brought donuts and coffee helped.
Yeah, that does. But just like a meeting.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. We had Starbucks has that big cardboard box with the coffee. I'd put it in the back, and I'd recruit some of the students to, hey, pick up some donuts on the way. And we had funds to do that, and it was great. We had a great time.
What would be, that's a big power of the industry coming behind you, and propping you up for that. Who, if you can say some names or some companies that were instrumental in that? Obviously, probably can't even come up with it. There's probably too many. But what were some key details, like the tours that you already mentioned? What were some of the other key details, and who were they?
Sure. Now, I could certainly proudly share some of those names as more as a thank you to them. So we had Barrick, Newmont, Freeport, Hewitt, Peabody, Arch, Cloud Peak, Alpha, and they've all changed names and gone through some names, but all of these companies have helped from far and wide. We had Kinross Gold come and recruit here. We had all of those people came and had us students. We had the quarry industry, Lafarge, Holcim. We had all of these people come in here, and we had absolutely amazing amount of support. And we did some really clever things. We attracted the companies to come to our career fairs. And then I had a goal for my first year students, even though they're in the freshman year, they had to attend every single career fair as part of their credit. And they had to go collect business cards from all these people and then also tell me about what were they about. Don't just grab it and walk away. Did you have a chat with them? Did you communicate with them? And
that was an assignment.
They had to do that.
Assignments, yeah.
They had to get to know them. And some of the kids who got hired was because of that, because they would go back year after year saying, yeah, I'm not graduating for another 3 years, 4 years, but They were shaking hands. They made an impression on them, and the same HR folks, engineer folks came and hired them. So some of the big names and this is not just the mining industry; it's even the service industry. We had Nelson Brothers support us from the Gillette area. They gave us some scholarships and summer interns as well. And we had MapTech out of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
They were one of our biggest supporters. In fact, their president CEO was on our board, and they hired a lot of our students. Barrick, Newmont, MapTech, Freeport, all of these companies absolutely helped us, like you will not believe. And that's the key to success. It's a small world, it's a small industry, and we have to look out for each other. So to all our listeners, if you're in the management side, please support your local schools, colleges, or any of these mining schools.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely critical.
There was a funny story. When I was a student, we were actually always in competition with South Dakota School of Mines and Rolla, and it was who could get more of the fundraising and who had the better students, and a lot of it who could kiss more ass to the industry people when we came to the conferences, and Rolla students driving all the way to best in the West, and it was always kind of this competition and not friendly, And I remember when I was president of the student chapter, I was like, this is bullshit. We need to be friends with everybody, So we came up early, stayed in Rapid City for a night, and we all went out on the town, and I think students get along much better now. It's there's
Absolutely.
It's too small of an industry. If
Correct.
you're really a competitor, you're gonna graduate, and guess what? You're both at NARM,
Exactly.
and you're in the same office.
Absolutely. And I taught that, I drove that into the students a lot. I said, look, healthy competition is good. We compete in the mining and mucking competitions and all that. The one we had at Western Australia School of Mines in Perth, I took a whole team, and then Rolla was there as well. We ended up on the same flight on United going up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
We had a blast. It was absolutely phenomenally great. And I always said, have a healthy competition. End of the day, they're going to be your colleagues. Sometimes they can become your boss, or you could be working for them. So be careful. Don't pick anybody off. And as far as the industry support goes, I really wouldn't phrase it as kiss and ass. It's more about communicating value, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I sit across a corporate desk talking to C-level folks of any company like Peabody, for example, I'm not trying to just say, hey, you need to support the students. I'm making a business case. And the business case is this. If you hired a mining engineer today, how long before he's productive? Let's say it's 12 to 18 months to be really, really productive, where he has understood the business and all that. And you're going to spend whatever, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. It may or may not work out. Now, you hire a freshman student in the summer, again in the sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, help him with this project and all that. You hire the same kid 4 times in a row, 3 times, have him go to different operations, then you hire him as a full-time. How productive do you think he'll be? He'll be a lot more productive. That's my case. That's why you need to support it.
Right? 100%.
It's not a goodwill thing. Yes, there is an amount of goodwill, but end of the day, it's a business case, right? So that's where the value is. So there is value in succession. There's value in human capital. You can never underestimate that. And that is what you should be doing. You should be looking far down the road, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Where are my next COO coming from? Where is my next blasting in charge coming from? Where is my next mine production planner coming from? Today, they are 18-year-olds somewhere drinking beer and having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you need to target and groom and train and capture.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What would you say some of the, you already said you a poster child and you had some success stories. What were not specific people, but what were some of the most proud things that you experienced as a professor? Maybe the moments that made you sit back and, all right, this is amazing, or something you didn't expect,
Well,
heartfelt, or
absolutely. I mean, every now and then, I will get either an email, a text, a WhatsApp message, or a post on LinkedIn from one of my students, just saying how their life has been impacted positively by going to school here. That's when you sit back and you say that was worth it. There's not a single thing I can say that it was not a good idea or anything. It was absolutely worth it. I think personally, everybody in the corporate world should spend a short stint in a university, whether it's a guest lecture or whether it's a 3-month stint or just take on a course. I've had a lot of people come and teach a course from the industry. A, we had a shortage of professors, and two, the real life experience was priceless. We had people from all over the basin, people from the gold area come and teach courses or specific projects. So I think when the students say today that they're a professional working somewhere and their life has been impacted positively, it's a good aha moment saying that was worth it. And they compare themselves to their other peers in the college, who did something else, computer science or something. And I can, hand on my heart, I can tell you that all of these students have had a much richer experience than most others, simply because of the nature of the industry, right? We're all over the place, we're all over the world. One of my good students who came from Shadron, Nebraska, Sterling, he now lives in Zurich, and he's lived in Paris.
I like Sterling, yeah.
You know Sterling?
Yeah, absolutely.
He was one of my great students, and he came in and he didn't know what he wanted. He thought he was going into mechanical, he thought he was going into metallurgy, and I sat him down and I asked why, what exactly drives you? And he was not so sure. And I said, listen, I need your help. He was a freshman then. He had not made up his mind on the major yet. And he was a very enterprising student. I took a bunch of high schoolers to a mine, and I said, do you mind driving the van? Because I had 2 vans. So he was one of the drivers, and he did great. And we went to a mine site. He saw the blast and all that. He was hooked, and he said, that's what I want to do. And he did. He was one of my best students. And today, he's working at Dino now.
Yeah, he's eating Swiss cheese and chocolate there.
You got it. And I ran into him in Paris. We had lunch together. In fact, we went to an outdoor sit-down place, a pizza place, and we're talking, reminiscing old days. And then all of a sudden, I take a pause, I look around, and I said, Sterling, isn't that the Eiffel Tower? And we both look at that. He goes, yeah, that's why I brought you here. I said, dude, I never paid attention. We were just busy talking about school and life, and it was great. It was absolutely great. And then I ran into him at the airport in Curitiba, of all the places.
You both had a layover at the same time there?
He was there for something else, and I ended up at the airport, and we had a cup of coffee.
Cool.
So I ran into different people. Of course, Mine Expo and SME and ISEE and all this. So you run into people everywhere. So that's such a blessing. It is such a blessing.
And for the, you weren't originally thinking you would be a professor, and someone kind of prodded you and poked you in that direction. What would you say to some of our other industry folk if they get presented that opportunity? What advice would you give to them? If they when you already did say every professional should have a short stint in university, but what is a something specific that you should?
It all boils down to passion, Evan. It all boils down to passion. Do you have a passion for bringing up the next gen? Do you have a passion for training up the next gen and looking at business continuity, right? We all do a good job of managing day to day. We diligently get up in the morning, go to work, be safe and compliant and all that. But what about business continuity? What about the next gen, right? So I think you got to have that passion and that vision. I have an example. In fact, as I was winding out from the university, going back to the industry, there was one of my counterparts who was in the industry going back to academics. Can you guess who that is? Same year, I left the university and went elsewhere, and he left the industry and came back to university and became a department chair. Not at my school.
Not at your school?
In Montana. No. Braden's an example too, but Montana. That was Scott Rosenthal.
Oh, Scott. Right.
So it was great. In fact, we ran into each other at one of the shows and we shook hands. And I said, "Man, this is so awesome. You'll enjoy it. You'll have a great time." Um, and it was great. So
Is he here now?
he is. I
Yeah.
just ran into him yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a rewarding experience, and you got to have the passion, right? And really, there's nothing about being good or not good at it. You have so much support. People come and help. So everybody should do that. In fact, I would urge, if you have any college professors on your listenership, if there are any listeners, they should encourage industry people to come and teach a course or a class or even a project. Have a case study, and then bring in somebody and have them sit in and have the students solve that problem and coach them and say, this is how we would really do it. So one of the key things we did at School of Mines was we made sure that all our assignments and problems were not from a textbook, they were from real life. And then we had real life engineers come and grade it or look at it and comment on it. No, we wouldn't do it that way, we'd do it this way, and here's why. So the exposure was priceless.
And so you've already kind of hinted on your way out. What was that transition? Going back into the industry.
It was good. In fact, there's a very clear distinction here I'd like to point our listeners to consider. When I left the industry and came back to academics, and then when I left academia and went back to the industry, it's really not, you're not leaving anything and taking on anything new, because you still had roots in both places, and you still do to this day. So it's really not a change if you really look at it.
As much as what people might think.
Exactly. Just because you're a college professor doesn't mean that you'll never go out on the bench again.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you'll never go out and shoot. I did some consulting in the summers, because most professors are somewhat relatively free in the summers. I did a bunch of consulting, right? So you're still very, very connected, right? So the transition wasn't a problem at all. And I was blessed enough to have an opportunity to work for Nelson Brothers and support on their chemicals business side, which is emulsifiers around the world. And it's been very, very, very good. We make some of the world's best emulsifiers for people to make emulsions all over the world. And today we are in 35 countries.
Did you get to take advantage of some of the contacts that you made while you were at university that benefited you afterward?
Certainly, every relationship out there has been very, very rewarding, both in academia as well as in the industry. And that's the other thing too, is networking. I used to have a saying in my class. I would always say, if you're not networking, you're not working.
Good for this conference.
Absolutely. And I would send kids to these conferences, and they had to meet people and come back and give me a report. They had to write a 2-page summary on who was all there, what was noteworthy, and who was your best speaker, and what was the topic, and what were some of the questions asked, and how many, in the trade show, who had the biggest booth, and what did you learn, who was presenting, who was a keynote speaker, what did they talk about, things like that. So they had to write a report on it. Not that I would look at each thing, it would just get them into the habit of paying attention to that. Yeah, sure, in the evenings, go and have fun too. I'm not saying don't have fun, but at the same time, do the networking. I would ask for, how many business cards did you bring?
Yep.
And
when we were students, it was definitely, we tended to gravitate to each other, and
yeah, you want to hang out as a group and
just come back to the table. You go to that table, you go to this table, and all were just forced to divide up and go talk to people. That's how I met Paul Sturt, Alexander. Like, that's how I met all of them. They were just, go sit at that table. And I was like, oh, okay, who are these intimidating people, or whatever. Dan Clement, he's scary looking guy to me. He's so friendly, but he's intimidated the hell out of me. So, in your advice a lot to students, what's some advice to the industry people on how to approach students and how the students have changed over the years? What's your approach now? I mean, obviously there's always, kids don't want to work these days. Yeah, they just want to do the TikTok, right? But what's some advice that you can give to the industry people on how to communicate with some of these potential new employees and
Advice would be too strong a word. I don't think I'm qualified enough to advise anybody on anything. However, I could make some suggestions.
Some hints.
I think you have to be relatable to these kids, right? You have to make sure that you share your passion in the industry, because nobody's going to listen to you if you're not passionate yourself about the industry, about what you do. That's when they'll listen and get their attention, and you should be able to relate to what they want and where they come from. First principles is first principles. You got to still learn the basics, but at the same time, today you have AI, you have Excel on your phone and all kinds of things, right? Timing design. Back in the day, 25, 42, 17, so you have to know the things in your head, like, okay, it's 17, 34, 51. You needed to know the timing. Today, you don't need to, because you have an automatic Excel sheet, or you're using electronic debts with time based on other things. So things have slightly changed. Technology has changed, but as older professionals, we need to adapt to that as well and keep up with them. And my teenage kids at home have trained me well to keep up and know how to do that. And I think a lot of people do. And that's the key, is you have to be able to relate to them and figure out what makes them tick. You just can't write them off saying, they're just a new generation. They want to watch YouTube and watch TikTok all the time. Sure, they might, but show them the other side of the world. Show them there's a big, bright future there and how much fun we have. And combine with what they already like to do. I'll give you an example. If there's a kid who's a YouTuber, he wants to make YouTube videos. Well, have you considered making YouTube about big trucks or something, right? Do a little documentary on it, or blasting or something, within confines of what's legal and all that stuff too. Be safe, compliant, legal, have the right permissions and all that. But that's something they could do as well and learn in the process, right? Blast design, body shooting, something like that. So, number one, have the passion yourself, convey the passion, and show them the value of that. Be relatable to them.
Now, are there any questions that you would have wanted me to ask you? Come into this interview and think, I wonder if he's going to ask me something like this.
Not really. I mean, it's a lot of sharing of ideas and sharing a story, and very exciting to share the passion. I'm sure a lot of our listeners do have that passion. They're in this industry, and hopefully I've given them some things to think about and be excited about. If you have a student, call them, chat with them, send them a text and say, hey, come and see a blast or something. If you're near a university, invite a bunch of kids out, do something fun, and have your corporate support it. Buy them pizza dinner or something. It's not a lot of money.
Well, Shashi, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. And this has been fun. And
nice to lock you down for an hour.
Not at all. My pleasure, Evan. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blast Report podcast. I want to thank the team at Blast Think for producing this show, and please follow along for more episodes in the future, and share this podcast with your colleagues so we can continue to honor our industry and the people in it. Be safe and have a blast.